Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? It's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, here with Jay Dash. Going to bring you our Pittsburgh Steelers season preview, basically scheduled season preview. I don't know if I want to call it a whole season preview. Just going to go over each game real quick. Nothing in depth. Give you who we think's going to win, who we think's going to lose, and why. Before we get into that, Dash, Joe Hayden signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday. Big signing for them, former first-round pick. Had some injury trouble, especially in the last 2 years. Do you see this guy coming in and really being able to make a difference?
I mean, he can be a difference maker. I think it's definitely an upgrade over Cockrell. I did want to see him. I was hoping he would be replaced by one of these younger guys this season. It's going to be Joe Hayden, obviously, that replaces him here and is the second corner for Pittsburgh. He can be a difference maker, but I'm not going to get too high on it because he was also terrible last season, and I heard he was having a terrible preseason as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 2 groin surgeries. He's had some concussion issues. I forget the other ailments he's had, but this guy's basically missed the same amount of games since Le'Veon's come to the team that Bell has, and people were screaming that Bell's injury prone and we shouldn't sign him, we should trade him, rescind the tag. But then everybody's acting like signing Joe Hayden's going to change his team and makes them an instant Super Bowl favorite.
Well, I mean,
just seems dumb.
I wouldn't say Super Bowl favorite. I still think New England's on top, but I mean, Pittsburgh's as close as you're going to get outside of New England anyways, with or without Joe Hayden. But like I said, I do think it's an upgrade, man.
Yeah, it's definitely an upgrade. And really, I mean, he doesn't have to be what he was thought to be whenever they drafted him. He's just got to be able to play some man coverage. Play better than Cockrell. And now what people don't really get is that this pushes Cockrell, Sensabaugh, Sutton, pushes these guys down the depth chart a little bit, and it's no knock on them when I say this, but it's putting them where they should be on the depth chart now instead of having them reach to positions they probably shouldn't be in. So as long as Hayden is better than Cockrell, and then you have Cockrell, Sutton, Gay, I still believe Golson's going to get cut. You got these guys to come in and play that nickel corner. I don't know if Cockrell can play that nickel corner, but I guess we're probably going to try to find out here tonight in the game against Carolina.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to move into that slot corner spot or not, man. I think he might just move to a bench spot, really.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I heard they were experimenting with Willie Gay at safety, so I really don't know who that slot corner is going to be. Maybe Cody Sensabaugh, because it looked like he was about to take the job from Cockrell before they traded for Hayden.
It's pretty surprising to see the Steelers make these kind of moves, though. They just signed Vance McDonald, or not signed him, they traded for him, but he's, 3 years, $20 million? I think they gave Joe Hayden 3 years, $21 million. That's spending some money from the Steelers, man. What'd you say?
3 years, $27 million for Hayden.
$327? Man, that's a ton of money for what Pittsburgh usually does.
I haven't seen the exact contract details, but from what I've read and heard online from some of the experts, it could be structured as it's a $7 million deal this year, and if he tanks out, they can cut him with minimal cap hit next year. So that might be the issue.
And I'm sure Vance McDonald's similar. They probably don't have to stick it out 3 years with him either. But, it's just surprising to me. There was Jerome Bettis so many years ago that was so huge bringing him in. Ladarius Green last year, finally another move that obviously didn't work out well, but we loved it at the time. Now they're bringing in some more guys. This is crazy out of Pittsburgh.
That's it. They're all in. They realize that their window's closing as soon as Ben Roethlisberger leaves.
Yeah, but I don't want to see him put in a terrible position once he does go. I think they can still win once he leaves if they just bring in a decent quarterback.
Yeah, we'll see. The Steelers, they're a strange organization sometimes.
This
never sign anybody, and then all of a sudden they're going on this is a free agent splurge for them.
Anyway. Yeah, I want to mention too, that there's always enough money to go out and spend more if you restructure contracts and everything. This is what I was talking about in the past, that people always saying, oh, they don't have the money to go spend or whatever. You can work out contracts and do everything and open up some room and always bring in extra guys, and they're actually doing it this year. I like it.
Yeah, they only had a little over $3 million in cap room before they signed Hayden, so they're going to have to do something. I don't know if they structured most of it as a bonus to try to avoid a huge cap hit or what, because like I said, I haven't seen the exact contract details, but I know they didn't have much money when they signed him, so they're getting creative.
All right, let's get into the schedule here.
Okay, week 1. Do we really have to discuss much about this game? It should be a pretty easy victory for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that they're going to start the season with the Browns because usually they are slow starters, Pittsburgh is, and it's nice to have easy competition early if you go out and beat them, but if you actually lose this game, it would be terrible.
Deshaun Kaiser making his first regular season start against the Steelers defense. Are they going to eat him alive like they used to do to rookie quarterbacks?
Well, like I said, man, the Steelers usually week 1, week 2, they're still getting their feet under them. So I don't think they're going to go out and completely blow them out 45-0 or anything. But I do think they're going to give him some fits or whatever. So I think Steelers win this game pretty easily, but it's not going to be a complete blowout, I wouldn't believe.
Is Le'Veon going to produce in this game?
He better if he wants that 17 mil or whatever he was talking about.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that. I'm tired of looking at Facebook and seeing all these jamokes act like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I get it though, man. I'm getting kind of tired of Bell too. Did you see that rhyme he made or whatever?
Yeah, the one he released yesterday.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
it's just so stupid, dude.
he's probably not. He's not the smartest guy. You know, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But I don't believe he really thinks he's going to get 17 million. I think he's a little bit of an egomaniac and kind of likes the attention that it gets him saying these things. So
yeah,
I still expect him to come in and fully ball out this year. I really don't see any issue with him. He wouldn't have been able to take part in most of camp anyway. He was hurt. He wasn't even cleared until about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago for any contact. So
yeah, I mean, I'm getting kind of sick of him, but as long as he doesn't kneel for the national anthem, I'm all right.
believe it. So you're not expecting a blowout. I don't want to call it a blowout. I don't think the Steelers are going to go out and score 45 points because they usually struggle a little bit on the road offensively. But I do think that they handle this game pretty easily. I just don't see the Browns being able to compete very much this year. Next year, when they have like 55 draft picks, they might get a little better.
I heard they just traded. Who'd they just trade for a 5th-round pick or something? Cam Irvin, maybe?
Yeah, their center. They drafted him in the first round a few years back. They dumped him.
I thought it was 2nd round, but yeah, either way, man, that's ridiculous to me.
They have 2 firsts, 2 second, and 2 thirds, I believe, next year.
Well, they better use them right.
Believe it. What about week 2? The Steelers take on the Vikings at home. Another 1 o'clock game. The Vikings, they were expected to be a playoff team last year. Teddy Bridgewater blew out his knee. They got Sam Bradford from the Eagles. Started off really hot. They were definitely one of the best teams in the league early on. Kind of filtered out a little bit as they went through the season. Bradford's the check down king. I mean, this guy, he only wants to throw the ball 5 yards downfield every single time he throws it. So I'm not sure that their offense scares me very much. They got rid of Adrian Peterson.
I like what they
just don't know. This
I like what they
defense is still pretty good.
I like what they brought in to replace Peterson, though. Latavius Murray's been a pretty good back out in Oakland, and they brought in that Delvin Cook in the draft. So I do like what they have. I think Cook can be a difference maker for this team, but I do see Pittsburgh winning this game as well, starting out 2-0.
Yeah, it's the home opener. They usually do well in the home opener. They don't fare well in the first game of the season under Mike Tomlin anyway, which kind of could hurt them against the Browns. But I fully expect this to be a close game. I don't see it being a blowout. I don't think it's going to come down to like a field goal at the very end. I think the Steelers' offense can eventually pull away in the fourth quarter, but I don't think they're going to go and put 45 points on the Vikings either. I think it's more of somewhere along the lines of 25, 21, maybe 30 points for the Steelers, but that's a reach.
I'm interested to see how their backfield works out as the season goes along, but as of right now, Stephon Diggs is that guy you really got to look out for. He can come up with huge games. I think he almost had 20 catches at one point, either last year or the year before. They target him a lot sometimes. In other games, he pretty much does nothing, but when he blows up, man, he blows up big.
So moving into week 3, the Steelers take on the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Another 1 o'clock game for the Steelers. The biggest news for the Bears, I guess, story, whatever you want to call it this year, is they traded up to get Mitch Trubisky. They still have Mike Glennon entrenched as the number 1 guy there. They signed him in the offseason as well. I'm not a big fan of Glennon. I'm not going to sit here and hate on him because he doesn't have a huge resume. But I don't think that he's some great quarterback. I don't really see a reason in using him as a bridge quarterback for Trubisky. I think they've both played just as well going through the preseason. I know you don't want to throw a rookie to the wolves, and it kind of screws people. If you look at Blake Bortles, played okay early on, but his play just seems to keep getting worse as the years go on now.
He has been named starter.
Maybe they go with Glennon here, but either way, the Bears' defense was terrible last year. They got a good run game, but other than that, they're not too scary.
Well, your boy's out there in Chicago now, man.
Marcus Wheaton.
Yep.
He's like the only receiver they got. They got him and Kevin White. Meredith blew his knee out. He's out for like the rest of his life. I mean, this offense just doesn't scare me at all.
Well, I tell you what, Jordan Howard is a monster. If they have that run game going this season, that's one thing you got to look out for. And with Lawrence Timmons gone, we'll have to see how the Steelers' run defense works out. I think it will be okay. But I like these road matchups early in the season. These are games that Pittsburgh can win. So while they're slow starters and they're not that great on the road, and including Big Ben, he's not that as nearly as good on the road as at home. I like these early road matchups. Get them accustomed to winning some games on the road early in the season.
I agree. Get those kinks out, especially since the starters really didn't play a lot with each other through the preseason. So these first 3 games are going to kind of be like their de facto preseason, I guess, if you really want to call it. The Browns and the Bears, totally winnable games. There's no reason the Steelers should come out of these first 3 games any worse than 2-1.
I agree, but if they lose any of these games, I think it's a big upset.
Definitely, because people, they always point and say, oh, it's okay, early season loss. It's not okay. We need to get New England at home in the playoffs if we really want to have a chance to beat them. Every game counts. We know, barring some catastrophic craziness like the world ending, the Patriots aren't going to go any worse than 12-4, most likely 13-3 or 14-2. So the Steelers need to keep pace, and they can't give up these easy wins. They need to get them.
I don't know, man. New England, they don't win the Super Bowl every year. People got to remember that as well.
No, I understand. I'm just saying as far as regular season games, even in the years they don't win the Super Bowl. I mean, hell, they went 16-0 the one year and lost in the Super Bowl. So as far as regular season goes, we just need to get that number 1 seed in the playoffs and not play them at home. They could be beat before we would have to play them at home. I'm not saying that's totally impossible. Just the Steelers in particular really struggle at Foxborough. So to me, the Steelers need to be at home to have any more than like a 25% chance to win that football game.
Well, yeah, maybe. But if they make the playoffs as a 6th seed, man, it's not like I'm going to say there's no chance.
I agree. Just not a very good one.
Right. Now, the next week I do think they're going to lose this game. They got to lose at some point, right?
Yeah, week 4 going into Baltimore. People are going to sleep on Baltimore because Flacco's been out most of the preseason. Their offenses look sluggish. They lost their starting running back. They have Macklin and Mike Wallace now as receivers. We know that Flacco can push the ball downfield. He's a very good deep ball thrower. Wallace isn't as fast as he used to be, but if Macklin can take some of that underneath coverage, get them safeties creeping up a little bit, Wallace is going to be able to burn you here and there over the top.
Macklin can get deep too.
Yeah, and the Steelers have struggled not just in Baltimore, but against Baltimore, period, over the last almost 10 years, honestly. I mean, it's been at least 6 years where they've really struggled to beat these guys. They're always games that we should win, and somehow we don't end up winning them. I think this is the first game that the Steelers stumble, and I agree with you, Dash. I think they go in there and they put up a goose egg. This Baltimore defense is still pretty good, man. I've watched 2 of their preseason games. I know it's preseason, so it doesn't mean anything. But this starting defense, when they're out there, they are putting pressure on the quarterback from every angle of the field. And we know that Roethlisberger struggles a little bit if you get right up the middle in his face. I know our offensive line is a lot better, really good last year, bringing the same guys back this year. So I'm not saying Baltimore goes out and dominates us, but I think it's a physical game. Quite honestly, you might see somebody go out with a concussion, and I think Baltimore sneaks us in by a field goal.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. We'll get to that point when we get there, but I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game, and I think the Ravens will take this one, and I think the Steelers will probably split with them.
So we got him going 3-1 over the first 4 weeks of the season. Rarely do we agree on this many games, Dash. What's going on?
Well, I think we're going to agree on the next one, too.
Yeah, Jaguars, week 5, coming into Pittsburgh. Another 1 o'clock game. A lot of 1 o'clock games early in the year. Jaguars, in the offseason, before the preseason started, they were, I don't want to say favorites, but they were like everybody's darling. A team that was on the up and come, a team that was defense got a little better. They were decent last year, but they gave up a lot of points. Just needed to cut that back a little bit. Hoping that Bortles could really get back into that groove that he was his first 2 years. And Bortles has almost lost his job.
Yeah,
they almost put Chad Henne in as the starter now. So
yeah, they gave Henne
who knows what's going on.
start there in the second or third preseason game, but they did name Bortles the starter. I think it might get set a little fire under Bortles there, man. I don't think he's washed up yet, man. I'm going to give him another chance this season. I think he can be all right. Allen Robinson, they didn't get on the same page last season necessarily. They had a solid start, but as the season went along, the catches came fewer and far between for Allen Robinson. I think they need to focus on getting him the ball more this season. And if they can get a good run game out of Leonard Fournette and that offensive line, it would be huge for Bortles and for the team, really. So I'm hoping Bortles can take a step forward from last season. 2 years ago, man, Bortles was looking like a star, really. Like he was going to turn into a star, and he took a big step backwards last season. I think he's going to, I wouldn't say turn it around and become that star again, but I think he can be a decent quarterback still, and I think he is going to have a little bit of a bounce back this year.
He's definitely better than what the preseason has shown. We've seen him play better. The Jaguars, just like you said, they need to run the football. I mean, you can't rely on Bortles to throw the ball 50 times a game when your defense has given up as many points as it did last year. Yes, statistically, if you look at yards allowed, the Jaguars were a pretty good defense, but they were not good points allowed. That really caused the Jaguars to always be in catch-up mode, always throw the football. You can't win like that, at least not sustain wins over a long period of time. So the Jaguars really need to get back to running the ball. Bortles needs to get back to playing mistake-free football.
Well, I don't know if he's ever done that necessarily. He does got to stop turning the ball over as much.
I don't see the Jaguars winning. I think this is the first game you see Pittsburgh's offense really come out and just blow up. They're at home. They're going to have a feel for everybody by that point. Le'Veon will have a few games under his belt. Ben and Brown are just always on the same page. Martavis will finally have his legs out underneath of him again. They have a little bit of an upgrade in that tight end position. So I think this is one of the games where the Steelers come out and put 40 up on the Jaguars, and I really don't think the Jaguars can even compete in this football game.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, a few seasons ago, man, what was the score of that game? Like 11-3 or something when they played Jacksonville, and the only touchdown, I think it might have been in Jacksonville, though. That's one thing. But the only touchdown was a defensive pick for a touchdown. I think it was Willie Gay, actually, man, maybe.
The year he had like 6 pick sixes.
Yeah. So I'm not going to just hand this game over to the Steelers and say it's going to be a complete blowout. But I think the difference was that it was in Jacksonville, and we know the offense isn't the same. So I do think Pittsburgh wins this game. That'll make them 4-1 at that point.
4-1 going into week 6 against the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. 4:25 game. Chiefs are a good football team. They got better in the offseason. They added some pieces. They did lose a few pieces. I think Alex Smith, he's always played efficient football. He knows he has that Patrick Mahomes right behind him. So Smith's really going to have to play well to avoid getting benched this year. And I'm not saying if he struggles a little bit, they're going to immediately go to Mahomes. I'm saying he would really have to crap the bed, and then Mahomes might take over. But I don't see Smith doing that. I'm not a huge fan of his. He's not Joe Montana by any means, but he's a guy who knows how to play winning football, especially in the Chiefs system, especially with Andy Reid after all these years. Their defense is tough. They're going to get after the quarterback. They did lose Spencer Ware for the whole year, so that's not going to help. They got rid of Jeremy Maclin. They brought in, or no, they didn't bring in. They had Tyreek Hill last year, so he's coming into his second year. Is he going to be that difference maker that people really think for Kansas City, or is he a one-year wonder?
We talked about this in our fantasy segment. I don't think he's a one-year wonder. This guy is a beast. I do think he's going to have a short career just by the way he's built and everything. But this guy is their best player. I think he's going to be their best playmaker this season. Kareem Hunt, that could be a huge addition for him in the backfield. If he can turn into a playmaker like Tyreek Hill, then they got some offensive weapons around Alex Smith out there. And you look around this AFC, man, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got the New England Patriots, you got the Oakland Raiders, and then there's the Kansas City Chiefs. And really, behind that, man, it starts to go downhill a little bit. So there's not many top teams out there, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs are one of them. I think the Chiefs are a lot like Pittsburgh too, where they struggle a little bit on the road, but they get it done at home. And this is going to be a game where I think it's going to be a tough game. And I actually think, did Pittsburgh go out and beat Kansas City in Kansas City last year, or was it in Pittsburgh?
I can't remember which one it was. I think they were in Pittsburgh, maybe.
This is going to be a tough game, man. I'm going to give the game to the Chiefs, but I would not be surprised if Pittsburgh went out and won this game. I think these are two very even teams. I think Pittsburgh has a little bit more talent, but seeing that it's in Kansas City, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Chiefs.
Yeah, offensively, I think the Steelers are the much better football team. Defensively, I think it's pretty even. Kansas City might even be a little bit better than the Steelers, only because they're more of a veteran group. The Steelers are a lot of young guys that we're hoping can come together and play well like they did down the stretch last year, but they haven't really done it for a sustained period for us to be able to say 100%. So I think, like you, it's going to be a tough game, but I think, honestly, the offense sputters a little bit in this game, and, Kansas City may even win this game with a defensive touchdown or just a, defensive turnover late in the game. But I do agree Kansas City is going to win this football game, and I think it's going to be a close game, but it's going to be a tough one for Pittsburgh.
Like I said, they obviously got to watch out for Tyreek Hill, but they have gotten burnt by the tight end in the past. I think they were a little bit better against the tight end last season, but still Travis Kelce, one of the best tight ends in football, so they definitely got to keep an eye on him.
Hopefully Sean Davis can become that safety we all expect him to be. He should be able to cover Kelce.
Believe it.
Week 7, the Steelers take on the Bengals at home. Another 1 o'clock game before a string of a couple late games and a bye week mixed in there. Bengals, I said they were on the decline last year at the beginning of the year. A lot of people kind of disagreed. They did kind of decline, but I think a lot of it was due to injuries, not necessarily the fact that, they're all complete garbage. But the defense got old kind of quick.
Well, I tell you what, that defense led up that defense led up the least points in the division last year, man.
Yeah, I mean, they did. It was like inopportune times, I guess, really. Not saying that they were, a terrible defense or that the Steelers are so much better. It just seemed like in the games that the Bengals really needed the defense to step up, they couldn't. And in those other games where the offense was balling out, then, the defense kind of held their own and didn't give up a lot of points. So sometimes that can give the illusion. Now, when you have given up the least points in the division, that's not a fluke. That means you are a solid defense. But they're just not a team that's moving forward. Their arrow is not pointing up, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. Their arrow is pointing down. I think Andy Dalton's just getting worse and worse. He's really not a franchise quarterback to me. I think the Bengals might agree because they had a lot of offers for A.J. McCarron in the offseason, and they were asking for a first or a second-round draft pick for the guy because I'm not sure they're totally sold on Andy Dalton. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if for some weird reason the Bengals start 0-4, 0-3, somewhere along those lines, don't be too surprised if you see Dalton go to the bench.
I think Dalton will be okay this season. I think they'll win their games, but I think he has about ran his course there in Cincinnati just because you got to win playoff games too, you know what I mean? And that's really the big factor of what Andy Dalton's not doing out there in Cincinnati. Now, we always talked about the two-headed monster in Cincinnati in the backfield. Now it's a three-headed monster, so they really got to have a good run game this season if they want to win football games. And A.J. Green got to stay healthy. Tyler Eifert got to stay healthy, obviously. Neither one of them did that all season last year. Especially Eifert. He's been hurt pretty much throughout his career. They have the weapons out there, man. It's just they haven't been getting it done. Like I said, the defense let up the least amount of points in the division. They have a bunch of weapons that weren't able to stay healthy, obviously, but the weapons are out there. Andy Dalton just got to get to the playoffs and win some games. And I don't know if that's going to happen again this season. I don't think it will. And I don't think they're going to win this game. I think Pittsburgh is going to have a season sweep on Cincinnati this year.
Yeah, I agree. The Bengals don't scare me at all. Even in Cincinnati, because the Steelers just play so well there. It's almost like a second home to them. It's not like when we go to Baltimore where we really struggle. We've really seemed to have Cincinnati's number over the last few years. I know Bengals fans, if they listen to this, will come out and call us idiots and whatever you want to say. It doesn't really matter because Pittsburgh's been the better team, especially over the course of the last 10 years. So I think Pittsburgh wins this game. I can't even really tell you for sure if I think it's going to be a close game because you never know, honestly, when you play the Bengals. The Steelers just roll them sometimes, and then there's other times where we look like we're going to lose, and then somehow we score 3 touchdowns in the last quarter and come out, and it looks like we rolled them even though we didn't. So either way,
or
I think
we're
there'll be a
losing
lot of
to them,
points
and then
scored.
Cincinnati just starts hitting people in the head, and we just march right down the field.
Yeah, Vontaze Burfict will be back by this game. I guess that's the biggest news for Cincinnati. He's suspended again. His suspension was reduced from 5 to 3 games, though, so that's good news for the Bengals. Bad news for the rest of the league. He's going to hurt everybody. Week 8, the last game before the Steelers' bye week, is at Detroit. The Lions just gave Matt Stafford the biggest contract in NFL history, surpassing Derek Carr, who got one, I don't know, maybe a month before Stafford. I don't think Stafford's worth that kind of money. What do you think?
No, definitely not. But that's the way the NFL goes, man. Whoever's up next, if you're decent, you're going to be the highest paid player at the position, really.
It's crazy. This guy, I don't even think he's ever won a playoff game, and he's the highest paid player per year. I guess maybe not total money, but per year, and that's just insane to me.
I'm sure they only made the playoffs a couple times while he's been around.
So this is a night game for the Steelers, Sunday night game. They love to play night games. They love to play nationally televised games. They do struggle on the road a little bit. I'm not really sure what to expect out of Detroit. You think that they could be a good team, and then those years they suck, and then the years you think they're going to suck, they come out and somehow win certain games. Really hard to put your finger on the pulse of that football team. Amir Abdullah coming back from a Liz Frank injury last year. How well can he play? That's ruined players' careers. I'm not saying it's going to ruin his. Just curious as to how he's going to come back from that injury. They don't have a scary receiving core. Like, do they have anybody on the offense that really scares you that much?
Well, if Abdullah can turn into what everybody thought he was going to be after we seen him in his rookie season, that's a guy that can scare you. And, I mean, Golden Tate's a pretty good football player as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're good, but there's not that Calvin Johnson type player who you really have to worry about anymore.
No, but you don't necessarily need those elite players to win in the NFL. You just have to have a deep, solid team. And I don't know if Detroit has that this season, to tell you the truth. But I would say they have some decent players out there that you definitely got to look out for.
I think this will end up being a closer game. I don't really see any team running away with it. One team would have to make a lot of mistakes for the other team to really run away with a victory. Pittsburgh's offense struggling on the road, although it is a night game, so you don't really know what kind of Steeler team you're going to see. Hopefully they're a more focused team. This one's almost 50-50 to me, so I'm going to go with my heart and say the Steelers win this football game, but it wouldn't shock me at all if they did not win this game.
I think they will go out and win this game. They always play very well in primetime games. I know it is a road game, but I do think they will go out there and win. But look at this. This game's at 8:30. They have the Colts at 1 o'clock in their next game. I think the bye is the following week after the Lions, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then they have the Titans at 8:25, the Packers at 8:30, the Bengals at 8:30, the Ravens at 8:30. So 5 of 6 games in this span are night games. I like that.
Believe it, especially if the Steelers can avoid losing those trap games earlier in the season. So if they can come into these night games with only 2 losses, they might be able to roll all through those games and win every one of them.
Yeah, so I do think they will beat the Detroit Lions, but then they have the bye and then go into Indianapolis. And I think it was a few years ago they went into Indianapolis and put up 5 touchdowns. Big Ben threw 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, the Colts are another hard team to predict right now because you don't know when Andrew Luck's going to get healthy. He hasn't played at all in the preseason. He can't throw or anything right now. They have Scott Tolzien penciled in as the starter. If that's who it is in Week 10, I'm taking the Steelers 100 times out of 100 because there's no way that guy's going to come in and beat the Steelers. I shouldn't say no way. I just don't think it's going to happen. But if it's Andrew Luck in this football game, that's a total different story. And I guess you also got to say is, what Andrew Luck are you going to get? If it's his first game back, then okay, yeah, maybe he's not going to come out and have a great game. But if he's able to get in around week 2 or 3 or even 4 and get a couple games under his belt, then you really have to start worrying about that offense.
Yeah, I don't know about the Colts this season, man. I think this is Andrew Luck's. I'm not going to say he's on the verge of losing a job or anything. He's definitely not. But it's been a while since he's was playing like an elite quarterback. So we really need to see him take a step forward this season. I don't know who's going to win this game at this point. I probably know more after the first 4 games and seeing how the Colts look at that point. But if they start out like they did last season, I have no problem thinking the Steelers are going to go out and handle this team.
So after 10 weeks, what do we have them? Losing 2 games?
Yeah, I have them losing
7-2
to the Ravens and the Chiefs, both on the road. And like I said, this Colts game's a flip of the coin right now.
What about their Week 11 game at home against the Titans? The Titans are a lot of people's sleeper team this year, expected to make the playoffs, expected to make a push in that AFC South. Are they going to be better than the Colts, and will it be a harder game to win for Pittsburgh?
I don't know if it's going to be harder to win just because it's at home, but man, Tennessee looks good. If Mariota can do what he did last season or build from that, and with all the offensive weapons they have out there, DeMarco Murray in the backfield, drafting Corey Davis out there, they still have Matthews, who's a very consistent, solid receiver. I really like what Tennessee has out there, and I don't think Pittsburgh is going to go 8-0 at home this year. So I think they're going to lose at least one game, probably one game. I think they'll go 7-1, maybe 6-2 at home. This is definitely a home game I could see them losing.
This is a Thursday night game. Nobody likes playing Thursday night. I don't even like Thursday night football, to be completely honest with you. I'm too busy to watch football freaking 5 nights out of the week, but I hate missing football. I won't miss a Steeler game, obviously, but it's too much for me. I hate the Thursday games. I think the Steelers still win this game. I think it'll be closer than what most people think. The Week 12 game at home against Green Bay is the one that I have them losing at home this year. So I think the Steelers find a way to win this football game. I could be a little tricky, though. Dick LeBeau's down there. He knows what the Steelers like to do offensively. He could bring in a few wrinkles that kind of hurt the Steelers early in the game. It could hinder them from getting off to an early start. So I definitely think it'll be a lot closer than what some people were predicting. But I expect Pittsburgh to win this game, probably by somewhere around 5 to 7 points. Nothing too crazy. I agree that Mariota is going to play better. They have put a lot of weapons around him. Tajay Sharp actually is getting a little better from last year. I'm just kind of questioning how healthy Mariota will be early in the year. Hopefully by this point, for his sake, that he'll be better. I like Mariota. He's a young guy. I like to see these young guys come in and play well. But I just think Pittsburgh can win this football game. And then heading into Week 12 here against the Green Bay Packers, that's where I'm really worried.
See, I'm going to say they play Tennessee, they end up losing that game, and then they get a great line against Green Bay, and everybody thinks Green Bay is going to blow them out. That actually happened when they went into Indianapolis a few years back, when everybody thought they were just going to get blown out by Indy because Indy was rolling. The Steelers just come off a poor game, and then they go out there and throw those 5 touchdowns against Indy. So I'm going to say they lose to Tennessee. Everybody's down on Pittsburgh, and they go and put up 35, 40 points on Green Bay.
The Packers are another team that intrigued me this year. They're definitely better than the Lions. Aaron Rodgers is obviously better than Matt Stafford, and Rodgers, honestly, should probably be the highest paid quarterback in football, if you ask me. But the Green Bay defense is a little bit of a question mark. I'm not going to call them bad. I just would have to see what they're going to do earlier in the season before I can give you an accurate, description of how they're going to be playing. They struggled with some injuries. They were moving people around at linebacker a lot last year. So it's really hard to project one year from the other. But we all know Green Bay is a really good football team. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game last year. I just think this is going to be a really, really hard game for Pittsburgh. They struggle against a quarterback who can move around like Rodgers, not run, but move around, and Rodgers is very, very accurate. That's one of the biggest things that the Steelers defense struggle with. If they're going to try to play some man coverage against the receivers in Green Bay, Rodgers can put the ball where the receiver can catch and run at the same time. So there's not going to be these bad throws that are slowing receivers up, and that could come out and actually hurt the Steelers. I don't expect them to get blown out, but it wouldn't shock me if Green Bay won by a touchdown.
Could this be a Super Bowl preview?
It definitely could. I'm not sold on the Falcons repeating as NFC champions. I didn't really even think they were going to make it as far as they did last year. I'm not totally sold on that offense, especially with Kyle Shanahan leaving. So the Steelers-Green Bay definitely could be a Super Bowl matchup. But this is the first game we disagree on.
Well, no, Titans. I'm going to say they
2 in a row. There we go.
Yeah, I'm going to just flip it.
Now it's more like the spread.
Yeah. We still haven't gotten the same record, though.
Week 13, our second game against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. It's an 8:30 Monday Night Football game. I really, is there much question here, Dash, between me and you anyway? We've seen the Steelers just kill people on Monday nights. They've dominated the Bengals over the last few years. We talked about it already. I think the Bengals are a little bit on the decline. Neither one of us are huge fans of Andy Dalton. So I'm not going to call it, 100% victory, but if the Steelers lost this game, I'd be shocked.
Well, the Steelers aren't that good on the road. This is the one place, though, that they do play well. So, like I said earlier when we were talking about the Bengals, I do think there's a season sweep coming here by Pittsburgh. But, I mean, I wouldn't be totally shocked if they lost this game. Shit, I wouldn't be totally shocked if they lost both of the games versus Cincinnati. Who knows, really, man? They always go out and lose games they're not supposed to. So it definitely could happen. But I'm going to go with Pittsburgh for sure.
I would be shocked if they lost both games to Cincinnati this year. That would shock me. Maybe one. I mean, they're division games, so teams play each other well. But if they lost both, I don't know.
Oh, we'll have to see what the health's like by that time, too. Both of these games are pretty deep into the season.
Week 14, this is the most exciting game of the year for me and probably a lot of other Steeler fans. It's a Sunday night game against the Ravens at home. I will be in the stands for this game.
Oh, yeah?
So I will be tweeting out live updates from Heinz Field unless it's too cold and I don't take my phone out of my pocket.
You should go to the road game, too. Aren't you out close to there, man?
Oh, man, it's like 3 times as much. It's crazy down here in Baltimore. I was looking into trying to just go to a Penguins game against the Washington Capitals, and it was ridiculous how much more expensive it is. And it's scary. One of my friends that lives closer to Baltimore than I do said he went to one in a Steelers jersey, and he felt like he was going to get beat up the whole time.
Well, I mean, I went to a game in Cincinnati one time, and, yeah, the fans harass you or whatever, man, but whatever, who cares?
Yeah, nowadays, though, people are starting to murder each other at football games. It's getting crazy. Somebody will start yelling something about Trump and just stab me.
Just don't wear that Trump shirt. You can wear Steelers, just don't wear Trump.
Can't make America great again. Damn it. This is going to be another close game. Whoever wins it, it's going to be less than 5 points. I mean, it's what the Steelers and Ravens always do. I mean, they're both really good defenses. They both run the ball well usually. I don't see it being a blowout either way. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a tough-fought game, and a defensive turnover could end up, being the key for either team in this football game.
Joe Hayden taking one to the house. Well, like I said, man, I think there's going to be a season split here. I gave the Ravens the game in Baltimore early in the season for the Steelers' first loss of the year, and I think Pittsburgh will have a little bit of payback in this game, man. It will probably be, like you said, come right down to the end like it does 99.9% of the time versus these two teams.
It'd be really sweet to see Big Ben drive him down the field and throw a touchdown to win it while I was there. I'd love it.
Landry Jones.
Everybody said Josh Dobbs was going to be the backup as soon as we drafted him. I just laughed at them.
Yeah, well, we've seen him in the preseason. That's probably not the best case.
Not going to happen. So we both agree the Steelers win this in a close game here at home against the Ravens, correct?
Yep. 3 losses.
Right, so we still have them with only 3 losses right now. Going into the Week 15 matchup, this is going to be one of the biggest matchups of season for the NFL, period. This is going to be a nationally televised game already, you can tell. The Patriots come into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. It's a 4:25 game. The Steelers, they can't beat Tom Brady, especially under Mike Tomlin. I don't think Brady's lost at all since Tomlin's taken over the team against Pittsburgh.
Well,
I don't want to say that they're going to lose this football game because I really, really, really want them to win this because this game could decide the number one seed in the AFC, quite honestly. Sure.
And here's the thing. Julian Edelman, done for the season. He's out. And for Pittsburgh, it's Joe Hayden, man. So that's a big difference right there. Bringing in someone to help a defense and losing someone on an offense that, I mean, you were really counting on Julian Edelman. It's not like they don't still have weapons out there. They definitely do. Rob Gronkowski. They still have. They brought in Brandon Cooks. They have Chris Hogan. So they still have the talent out there or whatever. But Julian Edelman is definitely a playmaker and a guy that Tom Brady relies on a ton. And let's not forget, Tom Brady's 40 years old now. You don't see many 40-year-old quarterbacks taking teams to the Super Bowl. So at some point, he's going to take a step back or he's just going to fall apart at some point. I mean, it might be this year. It might be 3 years from now. But at some point, Tom Brady isn't going to be doing what he showed last year. So hopefully that's this season, man.
Yeah, there haven't been too many quarterbacks in their mid to late 30s that have won a Super Bowl, let alone in their 40s. I think you saw Brady checking down a little more last year than he had in the past. He didn't really have a legit deep threat, I guess, last year, so that could be part of it. Brandon Cooks could provide that deep threat for them. Like you said, Edelman's gone, so I think that does hurt the offense, but Brady's always been one of those guys who's been able to find a way around anything, really. So I don't expect them to fall off that much. I think this will be a good game. I don't think the Patriots are going to run away with it like they usually do. I'm still going to pick the Steelers to lose in this football game.
And let's not forget the New England Patriots. A lot of people saying, hey, the Houston Texans' best defense in the league last season. Well, not in terms of points allowed. The New England Patriots were the best in the league. And I mean, to go along with that offense, Tom Brady's offense, having the best defense in the league makes you, a superstar team, obviously. If they can keep that offense where it was last year, man, New England's going to be very, very tough to beat. And I'm going to agree. I think New England finds a way to win this game if everybody's healthy and Tom Brady's playing good football.
Do you think this game will decide the number one seed in the AFC?
It very well could. I mean, I wouldn't see why not, man. It's like I said, Oakland and the Chiefs are the only other two teams I'm really worried about at this point. So, and I definitely think Pittsburgh's better than both of those teams at this point. New England's the only thing standing in their way in my mind. So, yeah, it should, unless New England has a 3-game lead at this point.
You mentioned the Houston Texans having a good defense last year. They're the Steelers' opponent here in Week 16. Pittsburgh travels to Houston. Hopefully Houston's cleaned up by then. Just feel bad for all those guys down there getting pounded by Hurricane Harvey.
Watt versus Watt.
City's a mess. Yeah, you're going to have the Watt brothers going against each other. That'll be the first time in their professional career. I'm not saying I expect J.J. Watt type numbers out of T.J., but I like what I've saw out of T.J. Watt this year. I think he could come in somewhere around 8 sacks for the season, which is a pretty good amount for a rookie. He could get more. I'm just not going to get too excited about it until I actually see him in the regular season. Oh. Texans offense, though, does it really scare you? Who are they even going to be starting at quarterback?
Has anyone been named starter out there?
Not that I have heard.
Deshaun Watson, man, I mean, he could actually turn into the starter, if not by the beginning of the season, within the first 4 weeks of the season. I wouldn't be surprised at all, especially what we've seen out of that offense last season. Hopkins out there is one of the best receivers in football, DeAndre Hopkins, and he had a terrible season last year just because he had no quarterback to get him the ball. So if Deshaun Watson can at least get Hopkins the ball, I see him being the starter out there for most, if not all, season long. But Lamar Miller, too, he has to have a bounce-back season from last year. And I think if they get a little bit better of quarterback play, that can really help Lamar Miller as well. And C.J. Fedorovich, a tight end I like. He's not a superstar or anything, but he's going to be a good check-down target for whoever does start for Houston out there. I think this is another game Pittsburgh's going to have trouble winning, though, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game. Houston's offense really doesn't scare me. I guess unless Deshaun Watson came out and really played well. They were 29th in points per game last year, 29th in yards per game, 29th in passing yards per game, but they were 8th in rushing yards per game offensively. So I don't think that unless they do get a really big upgrade in quarterback play, I don't think their offense can keep up with Pittsburgh's, but their defense could definitely slow down Pittsburgh's offense, which could really create some havoc because we still don't know exactly how good the Steeler defense is going to be. They're projecting to be a good defense this year, but that's not, set in stone by any means. So I think it's another close game. It's a game on the road, and man, I almost want to pick Houston in this game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to, man. The Pittsburgh's going to lose back-to-back games at some point, and they haven't done it, according to us, at all point throughout the season to this point. So I think it's the first time they lose back-to-back games. Then go play Cleveland, get that momentum back for the playoffs.
So we both have them losing 5 games going into Week 17 against Cleveland at home. I mean, come on, that game should be a win, right?
Again, I said this in the past, man. Pittsburgh Steelers, they usually always play Cleveland the last week of the season. This year, it's going to be the first week and last week. That's pretty crazy. But they usually play Cleveland last week of the season. Sometimes it's Baltimore. Either way, they've won like their last 9 or 10 Week 17 games. They dominate at the end of the season.
The one thing I can say about the Houston game, I forgot to mention, the Steelers have only lost like 1 game in December in like the last 4 years, something like that. So that could bode well for the Steelers, even though it's a road game. As far as this Cleveland game goes, I think it's one of the games that you can say you should have 2 victories against the Browns this year. There's really no reason not to when you're a Super Bowl contender and they won only 1 game last year and then stripped the whole team of anybody good that they even had last year, basically. So they're just like a bunch of rookies and Hugh Jackson running the show.
I heard Johnny Manziel was trying to get a job somewhere.
What'd you say?
I heard Johnny Manziel's trying to get a job in some other league.
Oh, he tried out for a CFL team, but after meeting with the front office, they didn't feel he was mature enough to lead the football team, and they didn't think he was in physical shape, is what I read. So he got denied by the CFL. I mean, there were reports when he was nearing the end of his time with the Browns that he was just he was skinny. He wasn't able to handle the rigors of football. And if he was out blowing coke every day, we both know why he was skinny. If that's true, I'm not saying it was because I don't know. But if that was the case, I mean, this guy, he's never done anything to give anybody any hope other than in college.
Will Le'Veon Bell be healthy coming out of that final game, Browns game?
I believe so. A lot of people like to complain that he is injury prone. I see it differently. I see it as 2 of the 4 years he got blasted in the knee by Vontaze Burfict on a cheap shot that any Steeler fan will agree that they were cheap shots. So I don't care who you were, you weren't getting up after that hit. I mean, they were brutal. And then last year, I think the Steelers are I hate to say to blame because it's not really the words I want to use. But, dude, he ran the ball more than any other player or touched the ball over 400 times last year. And then people were surprised that he got a groin injury, especially down the stretch. The only reason they won all those games is they were giving him the ball 30 times a game.
Well, I will say this, man. You look at injury prone different than most people. Injury prone to me, man, it doesn't matter how it happens. If some guy comes and takes a knife and stabs you in the abdomen, it's just part of it, you know what I mean? Like, my favorite player growing up in baseball, we're talking baseball for a second, Gary Sheffield. His injuries, I mean, they were never really his fault. They just happened, but he was injury prone because he just got injured, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily has to do anything with would it happen to someone else? Was it a cheap shot or anything? I mean, it's just injuries keep piling up for this guy, you know?
Yeah, see, I see it a little different because I see it as somebody who's constantly pulling a hammy or rolling an ankle or has a sore shoulder and can't play. Like, those are the people that are injury prone to me, not necessarily somebody in the instance of Bell where, he got a helmet to the knee. That, I mean, yeah, it's football, so, I'm not going to sit here and say whatever. You can't avoid it. It's going to happen. People are going to get hurt. But injury prone to me is somebody who's poor conditioned and comes up with a lot of injuries because of that, not somebody who's just unlucky and has happened to get, some cheap shots or unlucky injuries.
So Ryan
I mean,
Shazier will
that's
never
just
be
me.
injury prone to you because he's not in poor condition.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
So Ryan Shazier will never be injury prone because he's not in poor condition. Like,
I mean, Ryan Shazier is a little different because most of his injuries, now the one knee injury I think was a contact injury, but a lot of his other injuries have been pulled muscles, sprained muscles, things like that. So if those continue over his career, then yeah, I'm going to go ahead and label him injury prone. But if it's just, these big contact or, I mean, knee on knee contact, these are more unlucky things than anything. So it's just really, I see it a little different, I guess, like you said.
yeah, I don't make a distinction. You're either injured or you're healthy.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess sometimes the world's that black and white, but I just kind of see a gray area when it comes to the injuries.
That's it though, man. What, 4 or 5 losses, something like that?
Yep, we both got them coming in at 11-5.
I'm gonna
Although we
say,
disagree a little bit on some of the games.
how long have we been doing this? 4 years? Is this our 4th year?
4th year.
I have never said this since we started recording. And I've never been right about who I picked to win a Super Bowl, by the way. But I'm going to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. I think this is the season, man.
They're going to win it all, and Ben Roethlisberger's going to ride off into the sunset.
That is quite possible. And then they're
I think
going to
he
be
retires if he gets another one.
Then they're going to be stuck with a bunch of huge contracts they don't want.
Yeah, well, you know what? The other day I was poking around on Over the Cap, and 2020 really isn't that far away. They don't have any defensive players signed past 2020. When I was clicking through, they had a $0 cap hit on defense come, that year.
It's pretty insane.
They're not as bad off as we think defensively. Offensively, they have over $100 million in the offense right now. So you got Antonio Brown, depending on if they give Le'Veon a big deal. Marquise Pouncey's got a big deal. DeCastro's got a big deal. They're looking at re-upping Marcus Gilbert. Martavis Bryant, you're going to have to expect is probably going to get a deal at some point in the next year or two. So, yeah, offensively, they could really be stuck with some bad contracts.
That's it, though, man. We're running on low battery here. You got like 4% left.
All right, when Ben retires, they'll sign Colin Kaepernick, and we'll win a bunch more Super Bowls.
I'm done with football.
You're dead wrong.
Dude, if they sign Colin Kaepernick, I'm done. I'm not even watching a Steeler game.
Believe it, he's garbage. Steeler fans, hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimtowin. Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Come back to YouTube, click subscribe, get ready for Steeler football. Preseason finale against the Panthers tonight. I'm going to have to stream it online. Such a pain in my ass.